One of the biggest frustrations for me while I'm overlanding in my truck is trying to keep things organized and being able to get to those things that I need. I find myself constantly digging into bins and getting the bins disorganized, trying to find things at the bottom of the bin, which is even worse. And then the amount of stuff that I can actually carry is kind of limited by the storage system that I have, which basically is storage bins and just laying things where I can in corners and stuff. And the more I thought about it, I thought, gosh, if I could just build some cabinets using square tubing, aluminum tubing, and these end connectors that fit the pieces together at exactly the right angles, that would be ideal. So my first challenge was to figure out the dimensions of the truck bed. I looked online, and really that information is kind of difficult to come across. I was looking for a CAD drawing or something like that that would give me the exact dimensions. So I got out there with a tape measure, and I finally came up with a diagram that I put on a grid on paper. And then each square on that grid is 1 inch. And then I designed little things like the size of my porta potty and things so that I could move them around in these lines and stuff. And I started getting a rough idea of how things could fit together and how big the cabinets could be, and certainly how high they could be. Then after that, I moved into the dining room area, where in this house is nothing but tile, and I put tape down to the exact measurements of the inside of the bed of the truck, and put the wheel wells in there and everything. And then I started putting boxes and some of the tubs that I had and those kind of things. And that gave me even a better idea of how things fit. I'll show you a picture of that here in a second. So you can see these yellow lines that are on the tile floor here. This is the wheel well of the truck right here. And the actual bed of the truck is everything that you see in yellow there. That's the interior of the truck. Got some black marks there for the size of the door and where it sits. And I started putting these boxes in here. I had some U-Haul boxes from way back when that I used to pack crystal and dishes and stuff in. So they were about the size that I was thinking of, and so it worked out pretty good. I plan on sitting here with a pillow on top of this tub, and then have some kind of a table over here that will come out and enable me to sit here facing in this direction to be able to work on the computer. And you notice how the two boxes are offset. I used to have a stepladder right there, and it took up room and stuff. And so what I wanted to do instead was to be able to step right here and then step up here to get up into the canopy camper itself, into the tent, the sleeping area. So let me put just a couple more boxes here, and we'll show you what the finished design of this phase looks like. I decided to move the Lifesaver water filter, which you see in the left-hand corner here. By having it up here in the front, it makes it much more accessible, easier to fill, to get to, those type of things. These will be doors that will open up, and on each of those. When I need to get to the ones on the bottom here, then I'm going to take this and move it up on top. But there's going to be a lot of storage space, as you can see. Over here, these are stacked two, and then a kind of a different shaped, larger one. There is an area right here that is open, and if I put a little fence around that or some kind of an enclosure, I'll be able to put bottles in there. There's going to be absolutely no food on the inside of this enclosure, which I call the cabin. Instead, all the food items and drinks and things that have any kind of an odor are going to be kept inside the truck cab. And that's so that when I get into bear country, the bear is more likely to try to get into the cab than he is into the area where I might be sleeping. And yes, I am taking bear spray, that's for sure. So that's phase two, using tape on the floor to kind of see how things fit together kind of get some rough ideas of how things are going. I brought everything out to the truck to see if it really indeed fit. And so it works out pretty good. Well, it looks like the boxes fit, but what about the real lengths of the cabinets that I'm designing? Will they fit in? You know, the last thing I want to do is to order all these parts just to find out that they're too long, too short. You know, I'm missing something. But before I take the plunge, I'm going to put this into some 3D software. So I can take the actual measurements of the truck bed with the ALU-CAB on it, so the cabin part of the ALU-CAB, and with everything that's in it, and putting the cabinets in there, and see if this all really fits, and what lengths and heights do I need to adjust on those cabinets. This next design phase is totally optional and just not required, but being the techie that I am, I decided to create this three-dimensional rendering using some software that's free, absolutely free, on the internet called Sketchup. And I have to admit there is a learning curve to try to figure out how to use the software. But once you've figured it out, it's wonderful. It really is. So my concern was, did everything fit? And I wanted to really check that out minutely. So everything here is to scale, right down to basically the 1/10 of an inch. So one of my major concerns was the porta potty. I wanted to make sure that it fit in the aisle between the two rows of cabinets, the row on the left and the row on the right. As you can see here, it does fit with just about an inch to spare on each side. So let me give you a real quick tour of what I'm thinking about, how things are going to fit. So in the lower left, this blue box down here, that is a water filter. It's made by Lifesaver. And then behind that, this yellow part here, are two cabinets, one on top of the other. On the bottom is a long cabinet that has two doors. So the two doors, but it's just one long cabinet in there. So I can put very long things in there. And on top of it is a relatively long cabinet also. The stuff that you see here that is red and yellow and white and flashing back and forth, those are the steps, at least the original design of the steps. I wanted to be able to step there and step here to be able to get up into this hatched area right here, which is the hatch. It opens up and I'm able to climb up steps and then climb onto the bed platform over here. Behind it, on the wall over here, is a water pump that has a hose attached to it. And there is also, on the back wall, an ALU-CAB water tank. Then over on the passenger side, the right side, there are three cabinets, each stacked on top of each other. These are shorter than the ones on the driver's side. This large blue bin right here represents an action packer, and that is a Rubbermaid tub, and that's where I'll carry a lot of my recovery gear, my air pump, those type of things. And directly behind it on the wall right here is a 1500 watt inverter, and of course the porta potty that we mentioned right there. There is a little bit of space underneath the ALU-CAB water tank, and I intend on putting some things there that I won't access very frequently. So this works out really great. I can even see between the cabinet and the wall right here, there's some space down here to put things, as well as above the water pump if I need to. So this gives me a really good idea of exactly how things will fit to scale. Well, it's time to order the parts. But it gets to be a little daunting when I think about all this, because you're ordering certain lengths of tubing, and then you have to cut that up. There'll be some excess, and hopefully you don't run short. And I want to make sure that I've got the correct connectors, the correct fasteners, because there's a myriad of 80-20 parts and stuff, and it was a little overwhelming. So I decided to call 80-20, the company. And the gentleman that I talked to said, well, we have software that we provide to our partners, but you as an individual can use it, or we can give you the names of companies that are in your area that we partner with that can help you through this process. Well, I was running short on time. I knew that I had to get all the stuff together, order it, and put it together, and get it into the truck, and start packing everything in order to leave. And time was just running short. So I decided to call a company, which is Adams Hydraulics up in Tampa, Florida. And I provided them with these drawings that I had and that I wanted. And they looked at it and said, okay, we will put this into our own three-dimensional drafting software, because that will then provide us with all the parts that you need. And so that process took them some time also to do all of that. But we went back and forth on the design. There were approvals that I had to do, all those kind of things. We had a lot of conversations over the phone. But eventually we came to a conclusion of what we wanted, and we were ready to order the parts. So I went ahead and ordered them, and anxiously awaited for weeks for the materials to show up. Today, I'm going to start unboxing the materials that I got from Adams Corporation up in Tampa, Florida, to start making the cabinets for my truck. And as you can see, the materials are here on the floor in the garage. So I've opened the first box, and this obviously is a lot of hardware, but everything is bagged, everything is marked, and everything has numbers on it, so that as I put it together, following the diagrams that they sent to me, everything should go smoothly. Very strong cardboard. So here's how this works to put these together. You essentially have a bolt that fits through this little thing right here. I have no idea what to call that. But you put it in, bolt into that, and then you screw this into the end of the extrusion right here. And so that screws down. It's already threaded, it goes in nice and easy. And then, because the extrusion has channels in it, you take this and you put this through there, and then there will be a hole. Let's see if I get the right one. There it is. So go ahead and put this in here. And then there is a hole, an access hole here. So then you take your Allen wrench and you screw all this down, and it tightens up nice and firm to make a good right angle. it took longer to make those cabinets than I thought they would. And you may have noticed that instead of the square tubing, I'm using this other type of extrusion made out of aluminum by the same company, 80/20. It's a little heavier, a little stronger. Although I was told it was a little lighter, I don't believe that still. Once I was finished with the cabinets out in the garage, I took them back inside here and put them in that yellow tape that's on the tile floor there, just to see how everything was going to look. I was so excited. And I started packing some materials in there to see how I wanted to do things before I actually got out there into the truck. One of the things that I was concerned about was how to build a table, because I need to sit and work on the computer quite a bit to do video editing, to work on pictures and those kind of things. I cut out some cardboard to the size of that the actual tabletop will be, and it will sit roughly about right here, like this. So I can sit here, I can work on the computer, I can actually get in here just like this without even having to move the table and sit down. It's 20 inches from here to here and 24 inches across. Well, after I'd done all of this, it was time to put the cabinets into the truck. And so I took them out, put them in, put everything in, just exactly like I wanted it. And I started loading the gear into it. Then I took 2x4s, wire, baling wire, and I braced everything in there because I did not have them attached to the bed of the truck. And I wanted the people up there in Asheville Vehicle Outfitters, AVO, up in North Carolina, to attach it to the bed of the truck, which they did. So you might be asking, how did these cabinets hold up? I have to say, I went through some spots that I should not have gone through. I went through some extremely difficult stuff, almost tipped the truck over. And I was out in the dark and bouncing the truck around many, many, many times. 4,500 miles later, after all those trails and all the traveling and everything, I have to say they worked really, really well. I was super pleased with them. I'm trying to think of something that I didn't like about it, but maybe the only thing is I got a little bit of dust in because there is just a little crack in the door. Those doors, they don't fit just absolutely tight, which is fine. The real problem was, how was the dust getting into the bed of the truck or the cabin? And so that was an ALU-CAB issue, and it really wasn't an issue with the cabinets. Well, there was one other thing that I wasn't totally excited about, and that was the cost. And you're probably thinking, what was the cost? Before I tell you that, let me just say that if you put in all the planning, you have the diagrams, and if you go the route of having a three-dimensional model, you have everything that you need to build this out of anything that you want to do it with. I chose 80/20 aluminum extrusion. I thought originally I was going to put maybe $1,000 into this. I ended up just under $5,000. Inflation is just rampant. And if you look at the costs over 4 years or 5 years ago, it would have been that. But I am really, really pleased with the end results. What do you use? Are you using bins? Are you using some kind of cabinets? Are you using a deck system? What's working for you? Let us all know. Put a comment down there. And if you're not subscribed to Overlandscapes, please subscribe. It certainly helps the channel grow here as we move along, and we'd love to have you be a part of our community. I hope somewhere out there on those trails that our paths cross and that we meet.